I recently did a video on why you would want to use flash. As I mentioned in that video, it's something I would never have dreamt of doing just a few weeks ago. But I am more and more turning to using flash. But like with all things, it has its place for when to use it. I've got a comment on the video. Now, can we do anything with the flash to make it softer? I did actually cover in the video 2 or 3 ways in making the light a bit more pleasing, which also in actual fact makes it softer. The first question you have to ask yourself is what makes that really hard light with those really crisp shadows? You may well think that it's down to the power of the light. The brighter the light, the harder the shadow. Well, the brightness of the light has nothing to do with how hard or soft the shadow is. And I'll give an example of that. If you were to go outside on a night when we've got a full moon, nice clear sky, and you've got that really, really bright moonlight shining down on yourself. The moon and the sun appear in the sky about the same size, half a degree in diameter. So if you want to check what the size the sun is, don't go and look at the sun, go and look at the moon. If you're out in that bright moonlight and you put your hand out somewhere under the moonlight, you'll still get those really hard, crisp shadows. And the reason for that is purely and simply is because it's the size of the light source in comparison to the size of the subject it's illuminating. One way to show how we actually get soft light, again, is from the sun. If you go out in the sunshine when we've got a nice blue sky and the sun's coming down, you will get very, very harsh, sharp shadows. If you go out on a very cloudy day, for example, I've got rain outside at the moment, highly unlikely I'll probably pick up any shadows. If the cloud was a lot thinner, I would probably start picking up some very soft shadows. And the reason for that is that when we've got the blue sky, the light source that's illuminating you is that half degree sunlight in the sky. Whereas if we go over on an overcast day, even like now, the whole clouds are acting as a diffuser for the light source. So the sun is hitting the top of the clouds and it's illuminating the entire top of the clouds. The sunlight itself isn't coming through as that half degree brightness. The whole clouds are now become the light source, but it's the size of the light source on how sharp and crisp those shadows are, i.e. harsh light. I've done some drawings quickly just to then also give you some idea of what's actually happening. In the first image here, the round circle at the top, that's just going to be our subject. The very bottom here, this little sort of point thing is the light source. In this case, it's quite a distance away from the subject, and it could even be just something small like a torch. When you switch on that light source, whether it be a torch or a flash of light, the light that you'll see there going on the lines I've got before the subject is the path of the light to illuminate the subject. The green area behind is now what's not illuminated, so it's totally in shadow. Now on my next image, I've got a much bigger light source looking at the same type of subject at the same distance, and you'd expect that by showing on here the yellow zone that I've got on there would be the part that's in shadow, but in reality what actually happens, if you look on the next image, you'll see I've got a set of lines slightly closer in because that entire light source is not reaching everything behind the subject. So what actually happens here is that the yellow section now, which is narrower than what that green section was, is still going to be quite heavy deep in shadow. The red areas are what's coming from the edges of the light source and will help soften those shadows. So that is actually softening up the shadow. Now if you want to get rid of the shadows totally, or certainly reduce them a lot more, you've got to have a much bigger light source. So in my next image you can see that I've got a really big light source now compared to the size of the subject. Now when I show the lines of this from the outside of that light source, you can see that what it's actually doing, it's crossing over right behind. So I've still got this orange area which is going to create a shadow. Now the pink area on there, something different that's going to happen. The black area is the bit that's got no light on it whatsoever. There's no light coming around from that light source unless it's going to be bouncing off something else. So therefore there's a good chance that that area is still going to be in quite a dark shadow. The grey areas on there, because they're all crossover, light is coming from the sides of the subject, and therefore any light that is in there is going to be really, really softened. Now, the bigger the light source, the more light I've got coming around the sides compared to what's being pushed from the front center onto the subject, and it's more than likely that it's going to take out almost all of that shadow. I've got a similar setup to when I did that flash video. I've got my camera here with a trigger on to control the flash. I've got the camera tethered here into my laptop so that I'm recording the screen, and you'll then be able to see precisely on the screen what I'm seeing and see the images live. My setup here, I'm just using the same vase that I've been using again. I've got an upside down chopping board on there to give a white surface. So you can see already on here that I've got shadows on the back here, which is being created by the lights here in the kitchen. Got my speed lights here in the side. I've got it mounted on a light stand, just pure and simply, but it's easier to move around. And at the moment I've got this all in manual mode. I've got the settings set to 1/200th of a second, f8, ISO 100. And what I'm going to do first of all, I'm just going to disable that flash so nothing will happen. And if I take an image to start with, I can look at the images and it's totally black. So it means that I've got no light that's coming in from my natural light here in the kitchen showing up on the image. So if I switch my flash back on again, at the moment I've got the flash set to 1/16th of a power, and that should be ideal at f8. So if I take an image now and look at that, hopefully you can see on here that I've got these really, really crisp shadow on the background. That's the harsh lighting that you get from direct flash. Did mention that in the last video there's 2 or 3 ways you can come over this. So I could bounce from the ceiling. So I'm just going to flip the flash up. So it's literally going straight up there. Going to have to increase the power. I suspect possibly by a couple of stops. So if I put the flash power up to 1/4, and it may not be enough, take another image and look at that. I can see straight away that it's underexposed, but look at that shadow now. Even though the light is coming off from the ceiling and coming down, the shadow around here is really, really soft. So bouncing your light off a ceiling or a wall is by far the simplest, but you are sort of still a bit restricted to what you do with your light. Another option I gave was bouncing it off something like a reflector. You could have a white piece of card. So if I just bring the flash gun back round this way again, I'm going to turn it away from there, and I'm going to then try and use this to bounce it back. So I'm going to put the camera on a timer. So if we go to timer and specify a 10-second timer, start that, come over here, and I'm going to just hold this reflector literally right up against the flash gun and see what that's done. So if we look at that image, there you go. So we can see that it's illuminated it fine. I've actually took 1 stop of power out compared to the direct flash, but it's 1 stop more than the bounced off the ceiling. And if I go back to the first one, here you can see that really, really harsh shadow on there from the direct flashlight, whereas this one you can see now that it's really fallen off on the back here. So it's still reasonably crisp on the front here, but you go back a little, just a little bit, and that's when the soft light is all coming in. And that's just from bouncing it literally off an object like that. It's made such a big difference. Now there are other cheap ways you can do this from at home and you don't have to actually buy anything. So I'm going to turn the flash gun back around. I'm going to leave the power at the same. What I've got here is just some baking paper. Now this might not work too well because it's got that brown colour to it, but a lot of them you buy have got that sort of clearish greyy colour to it. You can buy proper diffusing film, but if you can get the baking paper stroke tracing paper in that grey colour, it would probably work better than what this is. So let's put the timer on again, and what I'm going to do this time is I'm actually just going to hold this up here in front, and there we go. Just see what the images come out like. And there you go. So you can see where I'm holding at the front there. In actual fact, it's not, by the looks of it, put much of a cast on there. And that has really taken out all the shadows there. So that has worked really, really well. So there you go. Non-stick grease-proof paper, even with it being brown. I mean, I suspect the subject being brown has probably helped, but that's worked really, really well. If you've got a 5-in-1 reflector, I certainly urge you to get one if you're using flash. These are cheap. They are really, really cheap. It's probably about one of the cheapest things you'll buy. So with a 5-in-1 reflector, you've got a gold, which I rarely use. You've got the white. You can turn this inside out and you get a silver and you get a black. But also inside here, you've got this diffuser. And I'll use this exactly the same way as I did with that greaseproof paper. I'm going to come here, stick it in front of the subject to make sure that any flashlight that's coming from the flash here has got to get through the diffuser to reach my subject. Start the timer. So we've got a 10-second timer, so it gives me plenty of time to get here. And I don't know whether I am actually in shot again, so it's handy you can see it with the image. And if we look at that image, you can see how soft the light is there. But you can see on the front here where the light has come through and it's not actually gone through the diffuser. So you can see the difference in brightness of the light. And if we compare this to the greaseproof paper, yes, the greaseproof paper I can see on there has probably got a slight brown tinge to what it's done to the overall image. Whereas this one with the white has kept everything white and it's totally diffused and softened that shadow. So why do these work? By either reflecting the light or through a diffuser. It's down to what I said at the start. It's all about the size of the light. Where up here I've got a flashlight that's a small round light source up here. It's quite a distance. The moment I bring this here, what it's done, that flashlight or that light source has now become this size, but it's now right next to the actual subject. So if you measure this in degrees, I'm actually looking at a really wide angle there, probably anything up to 90 degrees. Whereas going up there, again, it's a bit like looking at the moonlight or the sunlight. I'm probably maybe 1 or 2 degrees up there, maybe a little bit more, but you can see that the angle of the light source is so much bigger. Now by using the reflector, when I bounced it on the back of the flash, again, it did a similar thing. It turned this narrow light source into a light source that size. So it's gone a lot bigger, which is why the shadows are still a little bit harsh and quite deep when they go through there, because it's still at quite a distance. If I could actually bring this down a lot closer, it would probably reduce the size of the shadows. So in actual fact, let's try that. I'm going to try and bring my flash in here, quite close. And that way I will bring the reflector here. And I've literally that much closer now. So the light source has now gone from being up here to down here. So as far as this is concerned, it's a much, much bigger light source. So if we look at the image this time, again, it's got that overexposed because we are now too close to the light, but you can see that the shadows have really dropped out. To go back to that one, there you go. So we can see what the shadow's like there. It's quite bold there, and it's really softened out here. So it's all about getting your light source as big as you possibly can to get much softer light. So the next thing is using what they call a standard reflector. I think this is something like a 7-inch reflector. I've got a Bowens mount on the front of this holder, which is why I like to use the light stands with the flash gun. And I can basically just drop this in there. So like before, my light source has grown again. What was that small round flash has now probably got an area size 4 or 5 times bigger. If I have this fairly close, like here, I'm really going to have to take down the power, so I'm going to take that down to probably 1/32, and I think it's still probably going to be too bright. So I've taken an image there, and that's not too bad actually. It's probably a little bit overexposed, but it's still got quite harsh shadows, but they do fall off further back. So the reflector certainly helps soften the light a little bit, but it gives you a slightly bigger light source, and like all things has its place for use. One of the cheapest things you can buy is an umbrella as a modifier. This one I got with my studio kits 20 odd years ago. It's got a silver on one side and a white on the other side. I only ever use the white. I don't think I've ever used the silver. You can also buy what they call shoot-through umbrellas. So it would just be totally white, nothing different on either side. And that would work the same as when I used the diffuser. So with this, we've got to turn the flash the opposite way round. Drop this in front of the holder. So turn the flash around. I can bring that down a bit. And this is going to work exactly the same as what I was doing with a reflector. The only difference is because this is curved, what it's going to do, it's going to push the light out at a wider angle. Let's just see what that one comes out like. Yeah, that's very underexposed. That needs to go up probably about 2 stops. And that looks nicely exposed, and you can see there the shadow is really so much brighter. And here's probably my example of what I was showing with my images. You get the central part of your light source, which is putting out the most light, which is creating the harsher shadow on the inside there. But because you've got the edges of the light source going around your subject further, you get these softer edges. So it's almost like a 2-level light source. Even that umbrella, it's great. I don't know the measurements on that. I'd say that's probably maybe about a 40 centimetre umbrella. So it's actually quite small. The bigger umbrella you get, the softer your light will be, because you're creating that bigger light source. Now the thing I really like using is the softbox. These are absolutely brilliant. Certainly more expensive than an umbrella. This one's a 60 centimetre softbox. Got it from Neewer. It's the first time I've used it. It comes with double diffusion, so it has a silver innard on the inside here to reflect the light around. It then has a white diffusion sheet in the middle there first of all, and then here on the front I've got a white diffuser again. So if I pop this onto in front of the flash and spin that around, drop that down, and again the same as what I've done with the other options, the closer you can get to your subject, the bigger the light source is, and therefore the softer the shadows. So I'm going to put this directly on the side again, but I'm going to take the power down to 1/4, which might be too much without being so close. And yeah, it's overexposed, but you can see it's got that shadow on the bottom there. So let's take that down by another 2 stops. So it's down to 1/16. and that's a lot better. So I've got a really soft shadow for where the neck is going up the top there. It's only that shadow that's in the bottom there. Hopefully that's helped and given you something to think about, just to how easy it is to turn what is harsh flashlight, even off camera, into a much softer light. Starting with a 7-inch diffuser on the front to increase the size of the actual flash did have a slight impact, but even the bouncing of the light, which is by far the cheapest way anybody can do it, comes out with some really good effects. It's just a case that you sometimes have to move your reflector or whatever you're bouncing the light off around into the right position to get the light that you want. If you do have a light stand and able to hold an umbrella, that's certainly the cheapest option you can go. But I will say that my favourite option of all is with the softbox, and it doesn't have to be expensive to actually set these up. I think I paid about £50 for this one just recently in their sale. They're always having sales. As I say, it's a 60 centimetre one, double diffuser with the silver inside to help boost the light. It also comes with a grid, which I will probably cover in another video to when you want to use a grid. But the good thing about these, they literally fold up. You've got a mount plate on the back here, which is what puts on here and goes into the Bowens mount. And packing this down, it's literally 2 clips there. The whole thing then just closes up like that and goes into its own bag. So it's really small, the space that it takes. To mount the flash gun, I'm just using one of these. This is the Godox S3 bracket. There are different S brackets on there, but what it means is that you've got the Bowens mount on the front here. Your Speedlight flash gun will pop through there, and you just wind that down to hold it in place. If you've got a square stroke rectangle Speedlight, there is a plate that normally sits in here to give it that flat base in the bottom there, and then this just screws down and hold it in place, and these then just drop onto the light stand. Price on these, I think I paid about £20, just over. Light stands, you can pick those up for probably anything from £20 upwards. Umbrellas can be probably £10–15 upwards. Soft boxes, again, all vary in price. Thanks a lot for watching.